Here's a look at the truth behind the speech of newly minted vice presidential nominee JD Vance. Vance built his Wednesday night speech to the Republican National Convention around his own Appalachian roots, but it wasn't the first time he had shared his personal story. Long before he was a U.S. Senator from Ohio, Vance rose to prominence on the wings of Hillbilly Elegy, a best-selling memoir that many thought captured the essence of Donald Trump's political resonance in a rural white America ravaged by joblessness, opioid addiction and poverty. The 2016 book set off a fierce debate in the region. Many Appalachian scholars thought it trafficked in stereotypes and blamed working-class people for their own struggles, without giving enough weight to the decades of exploitation by coal and pharmaceutical companies that figure prominently in Appalachia's story. Some of the resentment sparked by the book crossed party lines, and some of the resentment still lingers. Although Republicans would vote for Trump no matter whom he chose as vice president, but Vance was not anywhere near the top of some of voters' list. That's in part because Vance had strong words to say against Trump around the time the book was published, even suggesting once that he might be America's Hitler in a text to a former roommate that later became public. Many voters who read Hillbilly Elegy, subtitled A Memoir of a Family and Culture in Crisis, and saw the 2020 film adaptation, say that Vance might come off as condescending to some voters. But most admit that Vance's accomplishments are undeniably impressive. Voters will be open to giving Vance a chance if he's willing to show his commitment to rural and blue-collar Americans by protecting them from policy proposals like those that would roll back expanded Medicaid, especially for drug treatment. Vance was raised by his grandparents in Middletown, in southwestern Ohio, while his mother, whom he introduced during his speech Wednesday, battled an addiction he said she put behind her 10 years ago. He spent a significant amount of time traveling to Kentucky with his grandparents to visit family and said he hoped to be buried in a small mountain cemetery there. He vowed in the speech to be a vice president who never forgets where he came from. Many conservatives loved the book. Among them were some who lobbied for Vance to be Trump's vice presidential pick. They include Donald Trump Jr. Some critics acknowledge Vance's right to tell his own story. Where they have trouble is when he makes sweeping generalizations. At one point, for example, Vance describes his grandmother's violent reaction to his grandfather coming home drunk after she had threatened to kill him if it happened again. In another scene, his grandparents curse out a store employee and smash a toy after one of their children was told not to play with it without paying. Vance writes, destroying store merchandise and threatening a sales clerk were normal to Mama and Papa. That's what Scots-Irish Appalachians do when people mess with your kid. Some of the locals believe that the book paints the people of this region as white trash, and they say that's just not true. But then his story is obviously compelling to people who aren't from here. Vance has acknowledged some criticism. He recently told the New York Times he distanced himself from Hillbilly Elegy in order not to wake up in 10 years and really hate everything that I've become. On the heels of the book's popularity, Vance started a charity called Our Ohio Renewal that he said he would use as a vehicle for helping solve the scourge of opioid addiction that he had lamented in the book. He shuttered the nonprofit shortly after clinching the Senate nomination in 2022. Do tell us what you think about this video in comments section and subscribe for more U.S. election news.